Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Blender Studio live stream. Okay, so today is gonna be a bit different. So completely new characters, or like completely new character for this stream, new topic. The last few streams were on I was working on Michelle, the sheep, which was more sculpting oriented. And now it's gonna be back to Retopology. I see people can hear me. Awesome. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so this is a bit of a surprise announcement, the new character edition. So this is actually, I want to give a bit of context to this project. So we actually also made like a on the Blender Cloud blog post announcement on this. So essentially, like 2 years ago, I worked on the Blender Cloud character Rain, which is a full open source rig that is available on the cloud for you to download. And ever since we started the production on this character, it was always clear that especially for animation purposes, it makes sense to add a second character, especially if you want to animate like a scene. It makes sense to have two characters at the same time interacting with each other. So it was always a bit a plan to have two of them at the very least. And last year, around June, right before the production of Sprite Fright started, I had a bit of time to actually start working on this character, the second male character, which we nicknamed Snow. So, so far, the only thing, I only had very limited time working on him, and the only thing I really got to work on was the sculpting part. So figuring out the design. So all of this is actually available. I uploaded everything that I recorded and all the materials on the Blender Cloud. It's part of my Stylized character workflow training course. So over here you could like find a bonus chapter which is called Snow with like additional time lapses, which is essentially just everything that I've done for the character so far, and also all the blend files and additional videos and screenshots that I've made. So you can just download the files and play around with it. It's all available. So but there's still lots to do. So the idea is to continue with the retopology and then go on from there into every topic, essentially, until the character's done. So, it's like a bunch of things that were already done. The sculpting of the character itself is essentially finished. There were like similar design ideas behind the character as with Rain to make the character easy to animate. All the clothing is relatively skin tight, so there isn't like any extensive rigging or cloth simulation required. And after the general design was figured out, I also went into some expression testing. So there's actually a bunch of sculpts that I did of just like basic expressions, but also some more elaborate ones of just figuring out, hey, does this design actually work? So all of this is already done. You can find more of this in the training course. I don't want to get into too much detail for this, but the last thing I did is the pose. Just posing him in Sculpt Mode with the new tools. Essentially what I've already shown in the past streams. And then putting him next to Rain and seeing them side by side and seeing that everything works. Yes, also Mike's comment. If you have any questions to me directly, you can tag me or like Blender Studio in the chat, and I will see that more immediately. So for the retopology, I want to go not too much into detail, but still give like kind of a comprehensive overview of my workflow, of like how you would go about this, because I I have a nice chance with this character of improving on my workflow a bit. I think with the character of Rain, there were some mistakes I did with the retopology, and I got to rectify them a bit in the training course with the tutorials that I've made for it. But even though the retopology is solid, I had the strong sense that it was too dense. One of the workflow problems that I had at the time is that I would start really with the fine details and then retopologize just everything in this really granular, small approach. And that ended up with a very high density retopology. And I want to do that a bit differently for Snow. I want to have a bit more control over the resolution and not go too overboard with the amount of geometry. But yeah, I want to give you also a bit of a nice example of how to make like a really clean retopology for film production, or how we would do it for the movie. Or at least how I would go about it. So I already made a new collection over here called Snow Retopology. I'm going to use as the base of my retopology, I'm going to start with the head, especially the face, because it's an interesting subject to show kind of like a bunch of the theory behind it. And then I just expand from there. But the head is also the most final piece over here, because you can see some differences between the full body sculpt and the expression testing. And that is because from the expression test, I noticed some things I wanted to tweak, like little things like where the hairline is, but the most significant is just the height of the nose bridge and things like that, which it's small changes, but they actually significantly increase the appeal for some expressions. And that's why having these this testing phase of just sculpting different expressions is actually so useful. You're stress testing your design. But that's why I'm gonna take this as the base. So I'm essentially just gonna I'm gonna reset the cursor to the world origin, and then from the side view I'm just gonna move it over here. Like, let's just start over here. Generally, I really like to start from the mouth, because it's I don't know, maybe it's from the earliest tutorials that I started watching, where everyone was always starting from the mouth, that I just stuck with it. But it's also kind of a pivotal area where you can easily expand from. So what I generally like to do is I like to polymodel the entire retopology. I also think a box modeling approach is really interesting, where you would start from cube and just insert more loops to add more definition. But I want to show this a bit more step by step. So an easy way to start is just from a plane. Just put it here and just put it right in front of the mouth. I can already go into edit mode. Actually, I'm gonna yeah, let's just keep the fade inactive geometry overlay. I think that's fine. I'm gonna keep it at 0.3. It's just graying out all the other objects a bit. Actually, and I actually want to start the music, which I always forget about in the beginning. Maybe I should update the playlist at some point. I want to add some more songs, by the way, which you can also find in the description now down below. So I actually added all the albums and bands that are like part of the playlist. So the first thing that I like to do is just to add a loop cut in the middle. So I'm just having it directly here in the middle. I'm going to delete the other side. And now I can add just a mirror modifier. This is the most essential modifier essentially to have here. In edit mode on this object, I'm going to enable the hidden wire overlay. That's just gonna set essentially the object that I'm in edit mode to, it's kind of into a wireframe mode, but it's still obscuring itself. It's like almost like an ideal way of displaying your retopology. I'm also disabling orthographic proportional editing. So now I can I'm going to enable this button over here, which is going to show the Retopology also on the other side. And I'm going to enable clipping on the mirror modifier. So this doesn't happen constantly where it's just like, it doesn't clip into the middle. If it's enabled, it's always visible over there. I also, on the Retopology object, enable display as, it's this toggle over here in front. So it's always in front of all other objects. It's really useful for displaying your Retopology. Now I don't have to worry about not seeing my Retopology object. And yes, I see the question, will we be able to download it? Yes, I will make all the files available on the Blender cloud once it's finished, essentially. Do you have a Retopo template for faces? No. I just use my general modeling workspace. And there's just a couple steps I need to do to, like what I'm basically showing right now, to make it more ideal to visualize the Retopology. I basically did everything I needed to do right now already. Just the hidden wire overlay and setting the object to be visible in front. The only other thing left is essentially just the modifier setup. So the mirror modifier is one thing, but I also want to add a shrink wrap modifier. I'm going to set this to target normal project, which is, usually I use project, but it requires more setup. I think actually I'm going to use this as my new default. I'm going to set this to on surface, which is perfect. Set the target to be this object over here. And that's it. So now what this does is, in addition to just the regular snapping on in edit mode, it just makes sure it's always wrapped onto the sculpted object. So it's always perfectly on the surface. And then the last thing I want to do is add a subdivision surface modifier, which is just subdividing the result for a smooth preview, which I usually keep to object mode. I don't want to have this enabled in edit mode. But yes, this is essentially everything I need. I'm going to get rid of the 3D cursor. So this is the usual starting point. What I want to focus on at first is I can like make some annotations of like the general thought process of how I go about the Retopology. So the most general thing you want to follow is the edge flow. So it's just the general flow where these loops should go based on the forms that you have, the shapes of the object, but also based on the muscle movements that you would have eventually. So I can already like draw around like some of the most essential aspects of where those loops should go. And essentially, it's not too complicated. Like the most basic things are, for example, like a loop around the mouth, around the nasolabial fold over here, which is like circling the nose, and then the laugh line, and then the chin. And then yeah, you could, for example, have like a loop that is almost just looping around the face itself and just kind of framing it. And if you wanted to, there's various different approaches, but you could also, in this case, add like another like mask loop around the brow, which is then leading back into here, and then you get like a general flow of your edges. I'm just gonna call this. Come on, can I rename it? Double clicking doesn't work. Oh, control clicking. So edge flow. I can also make a new layer, and this is the first the other important thing I actually usually focus on, especially when I start with the mouth, and that is like having a certain minimum amount of loops. But I also want to read the comments for a moment. Can you flip your camera? We can't see your shrink wrap settings. Oh, thank you. thank you for letting me know. I actually forgot about that. What I usually do is I mark like a little area over here as don't put anything here. Like, kind of like this. But, you know what? I might actually do something different. I don't need this much space over here. I could also just adjust the workspace a little bit just to have this more visible over here. So all of my, no, not preferences. Let's have the properties over here. So you always see the modifiers over here on the side. I hope this is helpful. But thanks for letting me know. So now I have like way more space for the outliner, which is amazing. Awesome. So what else is there? Oh, wait, other questions. What do you do when there's a lot of polygons and it's lagging while you're trying to preview the animation? Oh, well, I'm not going to preview any animation right now, but the ideal scenario is to keep to disable some modifiers for the viewport for the time being to increase performance. Are you using a vanilla version of Blender or any extra plugins? I'm going to use the vanilla version, pretty much. There's some add-ons that I have enabled, like the F2 add-on. You can find that. It's just a pre-existing add-on. It's already available. Like, you can just search for... wait, hold on. You can just search for F2, and there it is. This is the main one that I'm going to rely on. Other ones is just like the screen caps over here on the side. And like some custom menus, but they're not really that essential. Apart from that, there's also my custom theme, which I finally put in the description if you're interested, but just so I don't have to explain every time how I made it. What do you think about doing a C loop on the eyes and not a continuous loop? I've seen some people not connect the loop at the ends of the eyes. Well, there's like there's different approaches, and I would say that's it's more based on like the shape of the head and the style. Like, also the more cartoony you would go, the simpler the retopology could be. So you could just keep it really simple. And I don't think there's I wouldn't say there's like a essential right or wrong way of doing retopology. It's all just dependent on what is required of the character, how much realism is actually in this character, and how much do you need to achieve with the retopology. If you're interested more in like how I sculpted this character, I have like all the time lapses on the Blender cloud. But let's just actually jump more into it. So I'm going to take now the mouth as an example for this, but essentially one of the things I learned from like some of my research is this is more related to if you're rigging later on with shape keys, but I think it's still generally a great way of making a clean retopology. It's to have the right amount of loops for a nice articulation. So articulation is just like articulation areas are like areas of the face that have to do a lot of deformation, like especially for expressions. So you want to have enough loops to pull off any shape you want, any shape you could possibly need, any that the animators would require. So for that, it's nice to have like 3 loops essentially, as like enough curve handles, like almost like enough handles to pull off any shape. And then of course on the side, these the capping off point, like the end loops. So you get like a mid to like a left, a right, and an end. And the same essentially also applies for the eyes. So this is the bare minimum that you would need in terms of loops. But it's still not enough, especially if you want to hit more detailed shapes on just one side of the mouth. So it's a nice way of capping it off is to see like each of these main loops as like curve points, but then you also have 2 curve handles attached to it. So I would kind of like aim for this minimum amount of loops pretty much always. To just have like the middle one with 2 extra proximity loops, and then the right and the left one with 2 proximity loops, and then the end loop over here on the corner, again with 2 loops capping that off. And that should give you the most amount of control for hitting pretty much any shape you want. Unless you have like some really special requirements, like having like some zigzaggy mouth with sharp shapes or something like that. But in more realistic cases, I would say this is pretty much enough. And this is what I want to do right now. So I can just start this pretty roughly of just extruding these parts over here and just moving stuff around. I generally like to use the tweak tool a lot for this sort of things. Like, and also you might notice that I'm actually like, I still have like my own modified key map that's switching to the tools instead of the classical operators, but that's not really required. So let's just do this essentially. This is just my starting point. And so I already have the middle loop, I have the left and the right one, and then I would theoretically over here have the endpoint. I'm also going to enable this toggle over here, which is called auto merge editing, or like auto merge vertices. And it's just a helpful way of like, if you would slide a loop or a vertex into another one, they would just immediately merge. So it's just a helpful little thing of saving some time and making it a bit more loose. Well, I see another question. Will this video be up after the live stream, or will it be taken down afterwards? Best wishes. We're actually planning to. This is always going to be available on YouTube, but you can also just. It will be also available on the Blender Cloud afterwards, which I think is pretty essential. It's a great companion piece to the course and the already existing training videos that I've made. Okay, so we have all of the essential loops right now over here. So one thing that I'm kind of missing over here, and that is like something that I've been struggling with, is you want to keep both sides symmetrical. The upper lip and the lower lip. Same with the upper eyelid and the lower eyelid. If the loops match, it's very easy to connect them and have them meet in the middle. So, but you want the same to be true for over here. And if I would make a loop cut over here, it would just redirect the loop to the upper side. And that's not what I want. It's immediately making it asymmetrical. So what I like to do here is I'm just going to select these vertices, press J to split them, and then I'm going to subdivide it. By the way, this is just my own menu. It's essentially just quick favorites. But you can find usually all of this in the right-click menu. Now this is a little trick that I often do, and it's like essentially a two-pole over here. It's a pole as a vertex that doesn't have 4 connected edges, but it only has 2 connected edges. And what it does, I'm gonna make another annotation layer actually over here. I'm gonna just make this one white as just the neutral one. So what this does is, where usually the loop would be redirected down here, if this would be a square, because it just immediately redirects it just straight, it actually redirects it over here and back into the lower lip. And it's just a really nice way of keeping these loops connected and symmetrical. And it's just saving me a bit of time and work. So now if I add a loop over here, it's just immediately going to the other side. It's a nice little trick. But I can essentially already start with just adding the minimum amount of loops that I need for the mouth, that I want. So I already have this part over here. Theoretically, then I would also need these 2 over here. And now that's essentially it. So I just need to disperse them a bit more. So this is already giving me quite a bit of resolution. I think it's already a bit high, but this is the target that I'm aiming for. So I can also arrange this loop a bit more to match up with the edge of the lips. Edge loop, yeah, you can just cut an edge loop with Control R. I hope it's easy to follow. So from here on out, it's actually kind of easy to expand from this. I can keep it as simple as this right now. And what I would actually like to do is to I can just duplicate this face over here. And I can just model this nasolabial fold over here, this extra loop that is going around. Like this. I can keep this, I don't need to do this in like a really particular way of like counting exactly how many loops this is. I can make this really rough and simple, like this. And then I can detail it from there. From there on out, I mean, we would basically have a similar thing going on for the eyes. Maybe it's not the best idea to already go into the eyes, but I can at least essentially repeat what I've done. So I would just, same with the mouth. We have, I'm actually going to enable these lines again, but I love the inclusion of an opacity slider for these annotation layers. It's so simple, but it was really missing. I'm gonna make them a bit thinner. So same here, we have the main amount of loops that I want to add, which are then going to culminate over here on the corners, keeping it symmetrical. For now, even though the eye is actually open, I'm going to I'm gonna just fill this in as if it's closed, just to keep it symmetrical for now. Okay, keeping it like this. Okay, then I can just extrude and immediately scale this to already put the loops in place for the eyelids. Now let's just remove the interfaces again. And I have the main loops over here for the sides, for the edges. And then I can add these supporting loops over here again. Actually, let me fill this in again. Just in a simple way. Just so I can like add these loops, and I can add them on one side, and it's also going to appear on the other side. Like this. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of the annotation overlay, annotation layers again. Actually, let me just, I'm going to just hide them. That's fine. Okay, and I don't really need any more loops. I can just delete the inner part over here again. And I can just rearrange some of this a bit. Especially since the eyelids over here, the eyelid over here is getting a lot thinner. Kind of like this. But just like with modeling in general, retopology is affected by this too. I said this in a previous live stream. It's a lot of nudging. Although there are tools in Blender now that will make this a lot easier going more into detail once I add more elements that are connected. But I can keep this like this for now. I can see already one issue. I have the mirror modifier over here, but it's actually not centered. I can see that it's like, it's mirroring somewhere different. So I'm just going to apply the location and rotation. That was it. Okay. If those values are just applied, then it's just going to mirror it on the same on the same axis as the world. And since I aligned this head sculpt also with the world, that's ideal. So I can merge these over here like this. Okay. So to make this a bit easier for myself, I can mark seams to essentially keep to essentially remember where my main loops are. So essentially this one and this one. These are my articulation lines. Just so I don't forget. Okay, perfect. Same thing over here, essentially. So we have like these loops over here and mark seam, and that's it. It's just a nice little way of keeping in mind where my most important loops are for now. So where do we go from here? So one thing I could do is I could already start connecting some of these, but I could also eventually I'm gonna land into more problems. So I'm gonna bring the annotation layers back actually, because another thing I want to note over here are, wait, I need to name this. And this is gonna be creases. So creases are interesting because they're basically they're sometimes going to be fighting your edge loop a little bit, your edge flow a little bit, but they are very distinct shapes that you want to capture with the retopology. So, for example, they are sharp areas over here on the eyelids, or like around the nose, like over here. You would really want to capture these creases in the retopology. Same thing really for the lips. And something that Rain didn't have, this pronounced chin. So it's like all of these little areas. Sometimes they are also not visible from the start. So they are also like some, I would call them secondary creases, where they are going to be more pronounced the more it will go into animation. So let's say Snow over here is going to smile or look really angry. They are going to be creases that appear based on his expression. So for example, there would be one right here. Essentially, also this one would be more pronounced, that are following the brow, but that means that once the crease kind of appears over there, I actually can let's see. I can actually go to that expression because I sculpted it already. So I already marked some of these down. So over here, we can see them really on the brow where I really want to have this crease over here appear. And some other creases are also going to be more pronounced, like the laugh line over here. And that means I need to add enough loops for these creases to be able to appear using the rig later on. Same thing on the forehead. There's this crease that I want to add. But other than that, there's not many more. It's like essentially all the basics. So let's just go back to frame 1 and continue. Okay. So, and for this to work, I essentially need to add like a center loop over here and 2 additional loops to follow it. Like this can also be a bit more complicated with like more of a grid pattern where you have these loops not like circle around. But yes, that's essentially the idea. So these are going to be important. And let's just continue with that. I'm gonna bring back everything else. So I really want to have this over here on the lath line. I can already start connecting some of these, like over here. And I'm gonna keep it simple for now. So I'm just gonna keep filling this in a bit, but just while keeping in mind what I want to do with this. Now here it becomes a bit tricky because I want to have this crease over here for the chin. And for that I'm gonna break this idealized clean topology a bit. I'm gonna actually slide this up. And I would like to actually have something like this happen. Where like I place a pole over here to redirect this edge loop. Instead of it going directly up into the lips, it goes sideways and it kind of frames the chin. And the same will happen down here. I think I can just like fill it in really in a simple way. Although I would like to, I can just select this and just inset it and press B to exclude boundaries from the insetting. So I can just like get this extra loop in here. And the reason why I do this is, here's an interesting thing. Like a general tip that I have for retopology is, you see these like vertices over here that have like 3 or 5 connected edges. Don't place them directly on a crease. Try to place these on flat or like very even surfaces, because these will be really visible once you subdivide it, and if they're supposed to highlight directly a crease, it's gonna show some stretching. It's going to be a bit ugly. It's a small tweak, but it's just a general workflow that I'm doing of just never allowing one of these poles to be directly on a crease. So in this case, I have these poles over here, and these 2 loops are essentially framing this crease right here. But the poles are not directly on the crease. Yes, I'm just sometimes checking the chat if there's anything going on. If you have questions to me directly, tag me in the chat again. Before retopology, does the model have edge loops that are hard to be rigged? I mean, before retopology, the topology can be as chaotic and nonsensical as you want, which is actually the case. Like, I can show you this, and even though like I had to make some really fast and rough retopology to make the expression tests work, it's not pretty. It's like it has a lot of poles in it. It just goes in random directions sometimes. And the most important thing that I had for this retopology is just that the eyes and the mouth match up. And then I just reprojected all the sculpting details on top. So it's just really messy, and with the retopology that I'm doing right now, it's supposed to be much more clean. So I'm gonna also, let's actually do this. I want to still mark things as seams, just as a reminder of some of these important areas. I'm also going to clear these as seams. Okay, this is looking better. Okay, still nudging things around. I think this is nice. So here's the thing. Essentially, I could do this, where I would place a pole over here. I'm gonna do this for now, just to see where it goes. There's like different approaches on how I've seen people manage the upper lip. I usually like to have like kind of like the circling area that goes around the lip. I have the nasolabial fold, like this entire area over here. And then the way of how I manage these is, and especially going into the nose, that I would just add this small little patch over here, which is just making this all a bit easier. So that's why this pole is right over here. I'm going over some of this in theory a bit quickly. I hope this is making enough sense. Do you do this voluntarily or professional? Oh, nice question. Well, I mean, this is my job. I do this professionally for the studio. But this character is like something I pitched and I wanted to make. And I actually really enjoy Retopology. Because it's a nice little puzzle. It's essentially solving a puzzle. And yes, I see the question, do you retopologize the body as well? I will get into that. So I will start with the face today, and then this will expand until I get to retopologize the hair, the rest of the head, the body, the clothing, and then once everything is retopologized, we will go into more areas like texturing and shading and so on. So I'm gonna leave this right here like this for now. And the nose. Now that's interesting. So I kind of established this edge loop over here to be the center of the crease. So I'm gonna follow through on that. It's going to remain the center of the crease all the way over here. And just as well over here. And that means this loop over here is going to culminate right here. Just so I have this nice line over here follow exactly the shape of the head. There we go. Kind of like this. I think that should work. But this is gonna be tricky because let's actually add one more over here. So again, I always want to have the center of the crease not be connected to any poles. So I already added like this extra face loop over here to gain some distance from that from anything that I'm gonna do on the nose. So let's just continue with that. Okay. For the nose, I'm just gonna start to extrude this and scale it inwards. Like this. You can already see it's a bit messy because the shrink wrap modifier is just immediately shrink wrapping it onto the surface. So I need to nudge some of this around a bit. On the bottom of the nose, that's gonna become really tricky. That's gonna be really tricky. I think the nose is still one of the most tricky areas that I regularly just struggle a bit with. Which is a bit of a shame. So, sculpted this in an interesting way where I have essentially two creases right next to each other. That's not ideal. I'm also going to disable the mirror modifier for edit mode. It's gonna make it a bit easier to see what I'm doing right now. Yeah, like this. Okay, I'm already gonna merge these two faces over here and add like two edge loops just to add a bit of definition to it. It's like the minimum amount, I think. Let's see. The nose holes are also going to be really tricky. Maybe you can cover the nostrils with a face first and then inset it. Yes, I could. Like, I could just kind of like do something like this where I first kind of like fill this in and then I just like inset it and essentially like move it in like this. But I'm not sure if that's gonna highlight the shapes in the best way right now, so I'm gonna keep it like this for now. I have like an interesting flow going on over here, and I want to capture that. It's not the easiest thing. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep filling this in for a bit because it's just gonna make it easier to look at this if I have it already. Yeah, because nothing's really gonna change on this surface over here. This is gonna remain mostly the same, but the nose hole, that's gonna be tricky. Okay, there we go. I think I'm gonna... This is a bit tricky because I really do have two creases over here right now. So if I want to follow my logic of having the poles never directly on a crease, I would need to make some compromises here by adding more loops. Let's see. I can space some of this stuff a bit more out. It's fine, at least for now. Yeah. Now to the interesting part. How do I capture this shape? Can I actually do it in a relatively uncomplicated way? If I merge this, I want to have this extra loop going around and kind of frame this. I can try this. It's not ideal, but it could get me at least the shape that I want. Yeah. I can keep it like this for now. Again, I want to... Damn it. So I had this one marked as my crease right now, which is not ideal. It's a bit messy. I'm not gonna lie. For now, it's messy. Is snapping supported for edge slide in the build you're using? No. Edge sliding doesn't snap. And I think it's actually... I guess in most cases it's good that it doesn't, but yeah, sometimes it happens anyway. On your scale of 1 to 20, how much do you like your job? I mean, I like my job a lot. It's I'm really grateful for the opportunity of live streaming over here, and I think it's a lot of fun. I get to show some of this stuff that I'm doing. it's definitely slowing me down, and it's it's interesting that like I get to do this during the production of Sprite Fright, but I'm really grateful for it. Okay, wait, I'm gonna merge this. Okay, again. I want to actually try something, which is... No, I don't want to merge any of this stuff. It's going to be too visible. I need to destroy what I did here in the nose hole a bit. Okay. So what am I trying to achieve right now? I want to have all of these hard edges kind of captured in the retopology over here. And especially around the nose, that's a bit tricky. For rain, I kind of ignored the problem. And I want to learn a bit from the things that did not work out on rain. And do it a bit better for snow. I think this might actually work. No. These poles are terrible. Wow. These ones. These are horrendous. I cannot keep them. It's 6 connected edges to one vertex, and that is not going to work. So I actually need to split this off like this. This would relax it a bit more, and I could like merge this and fill it in again. And now it's at least it's 5 connected edges. I'm actually going to select this. And another little trick I like to do is in the viewport display over here, I can enable wireframe for specific objects. And now it always shows the wireframe on this object. I'm also going to decrease the opacity of wireframes. Still has... Did my logic not work out? This still has 6 connected edges. Because I didn't actually change anything. I am going to delete this altogether for now. And the ideal way that I see it would be to do something like this, where I have the loop kind of like lead outwards. Wait, is it actually? Oh, there's the face missing. And now I relaxed it a bit. Now there's actually like 2 5 poles over here. Can we make games in Blender? Well, yes, Blender is missing its game engine that it used to have, but you can absolutely make a lot of the assets and animations that would go into game creation. Do you plan on doing a rigging live for this character? I actually don't know how to rig. So someone else would have to do that live, but it would be amazing if we could do some more tutorial content, or just like presenting our work on rigging and shading and all that stuff. in this format. Okay. So I like this actually more. Like maybe you can see what I'm going for with here, with this, like where this loop is kind of like framing the nose, but only mostly on the top, and then on the bottom it's just kind of sliding in. That's just fitting the design of Snow's nose a bit more. But I already see some issues popping up. Where like, what if I would actually want to make a nose hole? In that case, I think I might actually be able to do something like this. I don't actually want to add more edges over here, but I'm going to just do it for now, just to see how this affects the topology. Because now I could just take these faces over here, or maybe just this face, and just extrude it further in for the nose hole, or maybe just leave it filled in for now. But this is getting a bit dense over here now. I'm spending a lot of time right now on the nose. That's not good, to be honest. Now I might actually try to do this trick where I'm just like sliding these two edges over here in and filling, just making a quad out of these two faces like this, just to reduce the amount of edges a bit. There we go. Although, to be honest, that was not very wise, because I terminated it really early, really far down over here. Let's actually undo this. There we go. I'm gonna try something. Can I do something like this? That would be ideal. Pretty much, kinda. I'm playing around a little bit, but this is at least getting rid of one of the loops and actually sending it somewhere where it's actually helpful, which is in the nose hole. Now I have a bit more resolution over here. It's a bit messy, but I can clean it up. One thing I actually like to do is, how important is it having square and uniform sized faces for something like this? Very important. I would say like square is definitely important because it's square faces have basically no stretching by themselves when subdivided. If you have a triangle or an n-gon, that's gonna have some stretching. But for uniform, I'm not opposed to like having like much more rectangular faces on the retopology, as long as the shape is more consistent. Like you don't want your lowest resolution and your highest resolution to like your subdivided resolution to look vastly different. That's just gonna make it unpredictable. It's essentially what stretching is. Can can you make a VFX tutorial? Not really. I think personally I'm the wrong person for that, but maybe someone else at the studio is up for it. At least for now, it's not really planned. I wouldn't strictly say no, it's never gonna happen, but it's not on the radar right now. Now this is interesting. I have too many loops, theoretically, going upwards. I'm gonna make a hole here. I like having a hole in like some of the areas that you wouldn't see later on, because you actually get to get rid of some loops in there. I don't mind having like now an extra loop for the nose bridge, but I didn't want to have two. Kind of like this resolution. Okay. Now a lot of this stuff needs to be nudged around a bit more, but at least the structure itself is kind of getting where I want it to be. I can continue with some more areas. So, for example, I can bring back the annotation layers. So I kind of captured the creases, like at least the loops that go there. Oh yeah, I see questions on like about the PC that I'm using. I have noted some specs down below in the video description, so you can check it out over there. But yes, I would like to actually continue with, for example, the brow. And one of the interesting things that I noticed with the brow is one of the brow is essentially also an articulation area. Like, you want to treat this as sort of a curve. So you kind of have the like endpoints over here. And then also 3 curves to give you the most amount of freedom on like actually deforming this in various ways. It's actually interesting that like if you go to the course, I also made like a bunch of cheat sheets. So to be honest, it's also something that I sometimes like to look at myself, just because it can be kind of helpful to remind myself on like what is the more ideal retopology, or like some of the theory on it. In this case, like I had the feeling that like these are actually too many loops. Like, this is the bare minimum that I actually would need. It's fine if they misalign with the articulation loops of the eyes. They don't need to match up directly. So what about the inner mouth? I see the question. Yes, I also need to retopologize the inner mouth, but that's easier to do afterwards. And also a question, I need to purchase Rain. Well, Rain and a lot of the content on the Blender Cloud is it's kind of behind the subscription service, but it's still open source. So if you once had access to it and you downloaded it, you have it, you own it. Like, you don't need to pay any fees to it. So that's actually something I heard about a lot of like characters that you could animate for, that you could animate out there. It's like they are hidden behind like a subscription service or something like that. It's not really nice. Or at least I don't like it. Okay. So what I like to do for the eyebrows is that the topology of essentially the brows, the eyebrows are matching each other. So, wait. There we go. Like, it's more like this. If the topology of the eyebrows, which is like all the hair and the eyebrows and so on, I'm not gonna make a groom of it, like any hair simulation. It's actually, it is going to be a hair mesh. So that just makes it a bit easier. But in any way, it's really helpful if your brows, the topology of the brows match up with the eyebrows so they can move in unison. It makes it especially really easy for animators. Okay, I'm gonna actually hide all of that again. I'm gonna mark these as seams. These are my important ones. Using a mouse? No, I'm actually using a tablet right now. I actually got so used to just always using a tablet, even though Blender's not really optimized to doing that. Okay. I'm actually going to just skip ahead over here and just work on the jaw. So that's just... Actually, I like to use the extrude to cursor as well for this. So I just need to click. Let's see. There we go. What kind of tablet? Screen or no screen? Well, it's just a regular drawing tablet, no screen attached. I don't think you really need a screen. It's actually quite uncomfortable. In my opinion. Not just in my opinion, it's actually ergonomically uncomfortable. It takes quite a bit of effort setting it up in a way that is not going to hurt your neck, your back, or your arms. Okay. I'm gonna add enough loops to actually connect all of this. Kinda. At least down below. I don't need to connect it yet. I just want to have enough loops available to connect it. Kinda like this. And then essentially the same thing on the brows. I could also already connect it actually. Just to see if it matches up. There we go. I can get rid of it again. Okay. The ears are gonna be tricky. I'm looking forward to that. So. I'm gonna fill some of this stuff in. Just for a bit, but I am still planning to adjust it. So I need to remind myself right now on like where exactly I put that line for... Yeah, it's like this one over here. So... This one, oh. This one right here. Okay. Actually, I'm using the wrong annotation layer for this. I want to use this one. There we go. Okay. I see more questions. In the development of Blender, do you plan to improve the display of the mesh for retopology, like Retopoflow? Yes, that is still planned. There were already prototypes in place, actually, but they weren't finished. The development goals kind of shifted elsewhere, but I think eventually it is definitely in the best interest for everyone related to retopology workflows to just at least improve the display of the mesh. Question for Julian. Have you learned 3D modeling on Blender, or did you make a switch from another software? Well, originally I started with Blender. That was like 10 years ago. Then I switched over to ZBrush for sculpting and Softimage for modeling. Then to Maya for a very brief period of time, and then back, but on the side just kept working in Blender. But I still miss XSI a bit. It's like little things in there that I wish Blender would have. So, how do I continue? I could. So, I want to align these loops over here. I think that makes sense. Just kind of like this main loop that is kind of like framing the face. To just have that align with the crease over here. Which means I would also need to add like 2 loops next to it, like these ones. And this then already aligns with the brow, which I'm also just gonna mark completely as a crease. I want to remind myself that this is the landmark that I've set where the eyebrows are gonna be placed. I don't want to get into this part yet. I also don't want to connect too many pieces yet, because that's gonna just become tricky, but just for laying out some of these things, it can make it a bit easier to plan. Okay. Same thing over here. I'm going to have a crease right here. So I need these 2 loops right next to them. Thank you. You are awesome. I'm inspired by you. Thank you very much. How do you get to color a character like that? I reached late for the live stream. The color is just from vertex colors. This was actually before I started using Sculpt vertex colors, the experimental feature that is available in the alpha version. This is just, I went to vertex paint mode and I just painted over it. And that's it. Like if I just go to flat colors, this is essentially it if I remove cavity. It's just very simple colors. And then studio lighting, which is just my own little setup over here. But you can also use matte caps if you wanted to. Actually, I could switch to Eevee. I should actually. This is actually making it much more pretty. And it's not like it's getting less readable, I would say. Like, this is fine, but this is just popping a bit more. But I do want to decrease the backlight a bit. Where is it? Yeah, it's this one. Set this to 6. No, it's not this one. Let's see. It's this one. 6. There we go. Okay. Disabling extras again. Oh my god. Lots of questions. It would be cool to get some variation on this character for animation with 2 men. Oh yeah, that is true. It would actually be nice to for example, offer some various hairstyles to give some variety. So you could theoretically use the same rig twice for 2 different characters, but they just look mostly the same. And yes, hair is a separated mesh. I saw that question just a moment ago. For the crease on the brow, this is gonna be interesting. I think it's enough if I like cross hatch it. Like I don't need to have like this crease kind of go around. That's just making the topology pretty complicated. I can also just keep the relatively uncomplicated structure that it has right now, the edge flow, and just offer enough loops that I can add a crease over here. But it is interesting that I'm running out of loops. So I might have actually overshot the mark a bit over here, or I could change this a bit. I can add another loop over here, so I have 3. This would make this one the crease, which would make a lot of sense. Then I can already connect these 2. It's getting a bit dense over here, but I think this is really necessary. And then I can just extrude this, fill this in, like this. I can also add another loop over here in the middle of the brow, especially if I want to this would be also a crease, and over here it would continue like this. I want to have this, and then I would need these extra loops over here to kind of frame them. I hope that makes sense. Again, if you have questions, just tag Blender Studio in the comments. It's easier for me to see then. Okay. So, this is already getting a bit dense, but I think it's fine, especially when compared to rain. It's not too abnormal. I can already extrude and scale up the region over here on the eyes. I think that's actually a good idea. Like this. Huh. Yeah, connecting this is gonna be a bit of an issue. I wonder if I can, or if I should, connect the crease over here, which would then ideally go directly into the corner of the eye. So let's actually try that. I can actually connect the 2 creases. Like this. Now I notice that like I have a lot of topology over here from the eye, and leading that into the brow is adding a lot of loops that I don't really need for the brow, but probably that could be fine. I'm gonna just try this. Yeah, filling it in to see if it actually matches up, and I think this is fine. Kinda like this. the further the brow area goes, like towards the outer edges over here, I don't need to match it up exactly anymore. One thing I kind of like to do is to go into Sculpt Mode. Wait, for this I'm gonna go back to Solid View, and I'm actually going to disable this overlay. And I like to just use the Slide Relax brush, to slide around some topology a bit and smooth it, to relax it. Just a bit. What is the upcoming update of Blender? Well, the next, I'm just reading some questions right now. It's the next update to Blender, I mean, that's 2.93. There's gonna be release notes about it when it comes out. When you are creasing, does that serve a purpose beyond just the UVs? I'm not sure what you mean. Well, there are you can crease the edges, and that can have benefits for the retopology, but I wouldn't recommend it. How high poly do you get usually? I try not to go too high poly, but I also don't shy away from it if it's necessary. The scrolling is a bit difficult. How do we apply a material for a part of a mesh? Sorry, I don't know what you mean. Why do you need creases in a retopology? Well, I mean, with creases, I don't mean like applying a crease to an edge, like what you would do with, like over here with Shift E. Or, oh, I think you mean seams. The seams are just a reminder. I'm just noting basically a little bits of information about the retopology, like what kind of important loops are in here and the elements that I want to keep and preserve, that I'm working around essentially. Is it better to retopologize with such high poly counts? What would you do when you reach the body? Well, yeah, that's gonna be a tricky subject, and I'm gonna get to that once I'll get to the body. But there's no way of getting around it. I want to have this poly count for the head. This is gonna give me the most amount of control, or give the rigger and the animators the most amount of control later on. I don't want to have too few loops in here, because it's not gonna be helpful. Yeah, this is not looking good, but I can tweak that later on. I can also just go into Sculpt Mode and just move around some of this geometry a bit and smooth it. Specifically, yeah, using the Slide Relax brush, I really like this. I really like doing this. Now here it's getting a bit tricky. I have a lot of topology over here in the brow area, which I still think I need, but it's a lot. It's actually too much for... Oh, wait. I want to see the other side. There we go. It's actually too much going into the rest of the face. I could try to like add it over here, but I don't think this is really helpful. Like, yeah, look at this. This is I can try it. I'm not gonna say no to it immediately. because I could also use these loops for highlighting the creases in the surface. Like this. Are you using a mouse or a tablet? A tablet, but sometimes also a mouse. I have one right here on the side, but mostly right now I'm just using a regular drawing tablet. Would it not be the same as working with half the polygons, then applying a subdivision? Also, how are you getting the polygons to stick to the face in Sculpt Mode? Well, I'm getting it to stick to the face in Sculpt Mode because I have the modifiers visible in Sculpt Mode. There's just a shrink wrap modifier, and it's just shrink wrapping it back onto the face. And subdividing the retopology to get more resolution is not a good solution. It's actually like, it's if it's about getting more topology, like you should just ideally tailor the topology to have the least amount of topology necessary. The fact that you're just subdividing it is not going to give you much more control, or it might actually give you a lot more loops than you would realistically need. So I'm punching the microphone. Add exactly the amount of loops you want to have, and not more. Subdividing should have a different purpose. So, have you ever tried using universal mesh for several characters? Same topology layout with different proportionals type? For different proportions type, yes, and it's difficult. Like, if you, as long as the head proportions and the style is pretty much the same, you can get away with it. I think that's actually a really good time saver, but it's tricky. For this case, I could not reuse Rain's topology or any of the other open movie characters. I want to tailor this specifically to this character. Can you tell how to make a 1-minute animation? No. But we can make about 10 seconds, right? I'm not an animator, so I don't know. Are there plans to put Slide Relax into the modeling tab? I'm constantly switching to use it. Well, yes, it would be ideal to, like, the Slide Relax brush in general is a really amazing modeling tool, and having that available in edit mode as well is the ideal scenario. At least a simplified version of it. So yes, that would be great. Going to disable the subdivision surface modifier to not see like a smoothed result. And in Sculpt Mode, I can just smooth over this a bit with the Slide Relax brush. Oh, I should not do this. Oh, I see a question. How do you enable the face filling function you're using the whole time? It's the F2 add-on. It's actually in Blender by default. You just need to enable it in the add-on section. Going to disable face sets. I don't want to see this. Yeah, I need to push this up. I would love the slide relax brush to be available in edit mode. It's the only one that I'm really using. It's the only reason why I'm switching to sculpt mode, really. So, but there are deeper changes that should be done to the retopology workflow. Here it's interesting. Like now I have like a lot of loops from the eyes, and I don't want to just add more loops over here because they are going to go into the mouth. And I already have the optimal amount of loops for the mouth. I don't want to add more just unnecessarily. So adding loops over here, for example, is way of a better idea because I don't mind having more loops in the nose. This is actually really helpful. So I'm just gonna fill this in. It can look a bit ugly for now. Like this. And I should also now, like from time to time, I like to just duplicate and apply the shrink wrap modifier, because then everything just snaps back to the surface. I can make sure that I can just like sculpt on this and it's not going to deform in any really weird ways. Oh, whoops. Okay, just smoothing over the nose a bit to distribute this geometry a bit. I like that I don't have to do this with the regular edit mode features because it would take so long. I see way more questions. I was wondering, why are some edges red and some black? Well, by default the edges would be black, but I'm marking some of them as seams with Control E and then mark seam, just as a reminder for myself, where do I have my creases? Where do I have my main patches and really important loops that I want to keep? Earlier in the stream I was explaining why I was setting some of these. Like they are basically like main articulation loops I want to have to get some control, to give some control to the rigger later on, and some creases that I want to have in there. Where did you learn to retopologize? Lots of people. It's essentially like knowledge that I accumulated over the years. Part of it from like mentors and people that from my from when I was an apprentice at a 3D studio, at a 3D animation studio for advertisement. Then like also other co-workers here at Blender, and also just from research, looking up, for example, Brian Tyndall, who's like really amazing retopology guy and like articulation artist working for Pixar. It's really insightful just looking at all of their stuff, and you can really learn a lot reaching out. And they typically also have like books and tutorial content. There were some talks about retopology mode. Heard Pablo mentioning it, so that could be a cool solution. Yes. I don't know, like retopology mode is still something that I am a bit lukewarm towards, to be honest, because it would just duplicate a lot of functionality that is already in edit mode. But I also see the benefits to it, so I don't think it would be totally out of the question. Like, it makes sense. But I would rather want to see also solutions explored where you would have a retopology workspace, and then the settings in the viewport and in edit mode are just more accessible towards that workflow. Okay, now I'm actually going to mark some of these yeah, I don't want to mark the creases over here as seams. I'm gonna clear seam, and I'm going to mark them as sharps. Now they're blue. It's perfect. So it's just an easier way of recognizing, hey, where are my where are my creases, and the red lines are then just my important loops. Like the articulation lines and just the main patches that I want to keep, that I want to have in here. Oh man. Okay, I want to change something over here. There's like lots of loops going around here. I wonder if I can add another loop over here without much worry. And then just fill this in like this. And get rid of one. No. No, probably not. It's getting really hot, really dense though. I don't like it. Well, actually it should work. Like I can just slide this in, move this one up. Even if this loop is like supporting a crease over here. Oh no, it is the crease. No, I can't do this. I don't want to have a pole on a crease. So I'm gonna keep it like this. It's just gonna cause some unnecessary stretching. So. Oh, this is so dense over here. I don't like it. Maybe I can do something like this. Like push this around a bit. Yeah. Can you turn a loop back on itself? Well, that is the main goal, that like whatever loops I create here, that they always lead back into themselves. Try to never spiral a loop out of control. That's just gonna lead to bad things. My ideal, I really love it when a loop is really leading back into itself in a way that it forms like a very self-contained patch, but that is sometimes not possible to achieve. It's not possible to keep it always like that. Hey, good to be able to tune in. If I may add something to the conversation, that poly about the above the lip feels a little misplaced. Above the lip. Well, I mean, the lips is they're still going to be adjusted, but maybe I should do that now. Let's just do it now. So one of the things I would like to do is just to add like 2 loops over here to frame the edge of the lip, because this is a crease. This is a sharp line, and I want to have topology here to support this sharp line. Like this. Maybe not so much anymore towards the edge of the mouth, like so I can just fan this out a bit. But definitely towards over here. I want to have this sharp. So if I go into object mode and enable the subdivision surface modifier, you can see it is now a sharp line. Now I can add like 2 more loops over here in the middle to fill the lips a bit more with volume. And to save me some time, I'm just going to duplicate and apply the shrink wrap modifier. You should wait. I see some more questions. How you make these lines on the face? Well, oh, you mean, I don't know what you mean. Like the yellow ones? That's the edge, the I forgot the name, the loop cut tool. And these lines, I marked them with Control E as seams and as sharps, just as like a way of annotating the model. You should bevel the edges of the lip or something. It looks quite sharp. Maybe beveling, sometimes I find it a bit unpredictable what it actually does. If I bevel this, it would create too sharp edges. It would just destroy my annotation. So I generally like to just cut in edge loops with Control R. But I will add as many loops as I need to make the sharp lines really sharp. As sharp as necessary, essentially. Are you gonna do a hair simulation or just keep them a mesh? I'm going to also retopologize the hair. That is definitely planned. So everything will be retopologized. Not just the face, but also just the entire body and outfit. So all of this is gonna be done. So let's just continue over here. I'm gonna continue in Eevee. I want to use Eevee more for retopology, just modeling tasks in general. I think it's really pretty, but I'm going to disable sampling, I think, or at least keep it on let's keep it on 6 samples. So it's moving a bit while navigating, but it's not like constantly sampling. Why you don't use Retopoflow or similar add-ons? Well, I did use some retopology add-ons, but I wanted to show a vanilla workflow. Like, how do you use Blender without any add-ons? I think using Retopoflow is actually like a valid approach. It can save some time, but I think like the main modeling features of Blender are all they're fine for this workflow. But right now I'm doing it a bit slow intentionally also, just to be able to comment a bit more on it. Okay, here we go. So the cheeks, they're gonna be they look always a bit difficult, but they're actually quite simple in theory, because it is really just about making a kind of like a square patch out of it. So I could now just really extrude this upwards like this. Let's add some edge loops over here. And essentially this is like the big square patch. Which add-ons you're using to display the shortcuts on the viewport? It's the Screencast Keys add-on. It's like I have it over here, Screencast Keys. It's a really nice add-on. You can find it on GitHub. Just Google for Screencast Keys Blender and then buy Nutty. That's just in general the best version. Will you be adding bones during the stream as well? Nah. That's not really necessary. A vanilla workflow is really good to show. Great work too. Thank you. I am strongly in favor of, like, especially if it helps your own workflow, to use Blender add-ons. I'm using it too. Like, I'm using the Pie menu editor to make like some more far more customized add-ons, but also because I'm not the best in Python. It's just giving me a bit of an interface to make that more easily. But add-ons can be helpful, and I like the open like culture of Blender, of like everyone just making and providing and sharing add-ons. It's really nice. Let's see, how do I do this? I think I want, to be honest, to have at least one loop lead back in here. Oh. get... just so I don't have all of the loops over here go down into the cheek. But I am fully prepared for just adding more loops in here. I think that's fine. Let's see. There we go. I'm just going to fill this in like really dirty. Not like this. Wait. Just to see how many loops I would realistically need even to fill this in. And to see if this is actually fine. Like, I can do this in a really quick and dirty way. Like, this is really dirty, but now I can still go into Sculpt Mode and with the Slide Relax brush, just smooth over it. Like this. And it's looking already much better. But I am not necessarily a big fan of how dense it is. That was actually one of the things I wanted to avoid. But if it can't be avoided, I'm also fine with it. Okay, let's just apply, duplicate and apply the shrink wrap modifier again. There we go. Another question. I meant whether you're gonna turn the hair into a particle simulation or just keep it as a mesh. And thanks for the awesome work. Thank you very much. Right now it's really just a sculpt, but I would retopologize it so it's a cleaned up version, still a mesh, and I would never add a particle simulation to it. So, I mean, that's still a possibility eventually to make a particle simulation, but that's not really in the plan right now. Can we use Blender add-on? Can we use Blender on Android? I'm not sure. I never tried. I don't think it's really supported, but it could be. So is having loops that don't spiral or cross themselves important for later stages of character development, or is it just for the sake of the modeler? Well, it is for the sanity of the modeler, but also for the rigor. Like, spiraling loops are going to generally increase the amount of loops that you're gonna have to an unnecessary degree. So it's actually good to keep them away from your model as much as possible. Okay, so I have this square patch over here. I think that should be fine. But I'm not necessarily super happy with the resolution of it. It's a lot. I think that could be improved. Let's see. What time is it anyway? Oh, wow. Okay, I'm getting close to the end of today's stream anyway. I'm gonna continue a bit with the face, but I'm already kind of happy with the progress. I'm going to remove the red seams over here. I don't need that visual clutter, actually. I think I can actually get rid of this one. Let's actually cut another one in here. I want to get the amount of loops down as much as possible. It's definitely gonna be one of my top goals right now. This is a lot right now. I mean, I could just for now add like compromise over here with like a little diamond quad, but I'm not too happy about that. I can like add a hole for it. Let's see. I'm doing a surprising amount of cleanup, even though it's not necessary yet. I also see some questions that I missed. Have you tried to make your own hyper-realistic portrait on Blender? No. No, not yet. Let's see. I'm really not happy about this whole area. See. Another question. This is just for showing technical purposes, or will you do something with your good work? Well, the idea is to eventually, once the retopology is done of this character, the complete character, to go further into UV unwrapping, texturing and shading, and also just rendering and presenting the character in an interesting way. But eventually the character should be rigged and added to the cloud character library, so you can actually access it there, download it, animate it, and all the files should be available also on what I'm doing right now. Ha! Let's see. This is interesting. I think I would want to push this down just to match the shapes a bit more over here. By the way, I turned the object right now via a shortcut into a wireframe object. You can find that here and display as wire, or by default it's displayed as textured. So if it's wire, then it's just making it a bit easier for me right now to see the underlying object in the underlying sculpt in Sculpt Mode, while still being able to sculpt on the retopology. Like this. What is the first character you had designed? I don't know, to be honest. Not right now. It's been a while. Okay. In general, this is looking fine. I would like this to have a bit more distance over here, so it matches the shape a bit more of the cheekbone. And this is gonna be tricky. I want to have the line follow this shape over here. And this is actually not just any line, it's actually a crease. So I'm gonna actually mark it as such over here. This is a crease, which I want to keep. Okay, so how do I manage that? Hmm. I have a feeling this is going to be very tricky. Because if I can match up the loops of the endpoint over here on the eye with this crease, that would be ideal. Let's see. Oh boy. Can I... Can I merge these? I want to get the... Like... this is not ideal, but I could manage. Wow, no, this does not work. This is now like where the puzzle is getting kind of interesting. Do you know if the rigging will be streamed? No, I'm not sure. No, I don't like where this is leading. Ah. Yeah, I'm just experimenting right now on how I could fill these areas without adding a lot of loops. I mean, the easiest way is to just like really to lead it into the cheek, because there's already so much going on there that it's just a bit overkill. Don't like this idea. Okay, I should save. I haven't saved in an eternity. Is there any played versions in Blender? Sorry, I don't understand. How many hours have you spent making a complete character rig the texture? Well, this depends on the character. There's like simpler characters where we spent like a week or like a couple of weeks. Like for example the Settlers project, but then Rain, for example, was an entire almost like a research project that took like 1.5, a couple months. But it's essentially like making the main character of your movie, so it makes sense that it takes a lot of time. Yeah. I'm a bit disappointed that like with the retopology right now, I didn't get to lead the loops really nicely into like very organized patches. But that's fine. It's still the topology itself should still work the way it does right now. I think mostly everything is kind of here, at least for the face. Of course, the best way to test this is to just like enable the Subdivision surface modifier and to see how it looks in comparison to the sculpt underneath. There's also something weird going on over here. What is that? That's weird. Oh, there's a face that was hidden. Okay, there we go. So just this mask, this part of the retopology, how much does it match up? I think it does fairly well. The most important thing is that it captures not necessarily the main volumes, because that's something I can fix afterwards, but the creases. And especially around the eyes, I think it does a pretty good job. It could be sharper over here. So I could just nudge this further in. And interestingly enough, there is no... well, I would have to add at least one edge over here as like the counterpart. Like really just to make this crease visible. Might actually make it too visible right now, but it can be softened. Yeah, it's looking good. And then someone is drilling. I hope that's not audible in the stream. Okay. His nose is so big, yes. That was definitely part of the design. I wanted to give him a bigger nose than Rain. I think the design of the nose is pretty fun. Like, there's certain aspects of the character designs that are exaggerated between these different characters. Like for Rain, it was really supposed to be the brow and her eyebrows. Like, she has a really pronounced brow. For him, it was definitely more the nose and the chin. this work in the best way. Could like push this up. I mean, these loops are close enough to each other that they could pinch together and form that crease without having like a severe loss of volume around on the other sides. It could work. I assume the eyebrows are separate geometry. If so, is it tricky to make it not disappear into the face or something when rigging or deforming? That is a really good question. To avoid that, what I always try to do is to have like the topology over here on the eyebrows. This is the topology of the face, but it should match up with the eyebrows as much as possible. Except for the outer parts over here where it would just become too tiny. But what that offers us is if we make an eyebrow geometry, it can have the same amount of loops at the same place, and then they can move together without real effort to the rigging. So that just makes it easier. I think this is already looking pretty good. Of course, there's like other elements missing, like for example, retopologizing the ears, the neck, and all that stuff. But I think I'll leave that to another stream. That would be then in the next part, finishing up the rest of the head. I just want to double check on these facial elements, like the nose, for example. Like I just left a hole in here for now, and I could finish up the eyes. That's something I could do at least. Not going into the inner eye, like the thickness of the eyelids and such. Or actually, let's do it anyway. That's the least I can do. So I can just like extrude and scale this in. Like this, and then I kind of get the inner eyelids. And don't shy away from making them thick. Eyelids are actually really thick if you look at them like from an anatomical standpoint. Of course, I might have to adjust the distance to the eyes so they don't have to clip into each other. But something like this. Oh, I actually hit the eye object. There we go. Like this. Kind of like this. Okay. And then I need a certain amount of loops in... oh wait, there's actually some more questions. I should also answer those. Are you a T-pose or an A-pose type of person? Well, I've tried a few different resting poses throughout the different productions we had, and the most popular for the animators is generally the T-pose, just because it's making rotation values on bones and all that stuff much easier to manage. So if you want to give animators less of a headache, go for a T-pose. But for sculpting in general, I'm now moving away from T or A poses completely. When I'm sculpting a character on a design perspective, like just finding the character design, I'm going to just pose them with the arms down in the most relaxed way or natural way as possible. I don't want to the design to be less readable because of technical specifics. Something that a problem that we ran into a few times now. But yes, the eyelets. I already have this edge loop over here, and I would like to add at least like 3 more. And these 3 are just enough, like if the eye should ever close, that there's enough loops to keep the volume of the eyelets intact, like that the eyelets could have a bit of curvature and actually wrap nicely around the eye. But then also these 2 loops are a nice counterpiece to the creases that we're gonna have here. So I'm gonna add 1 more over there as well. And this is gonna also be marked as a sharp. And this just makes more sense now. So I have these 2 loops over here for this crease, and these 2 loops for this crease, and these 4 loops over here can be used for when the eye closes. It's a really good rule of thumb. The ear, I'm gonna do that in the next stream. I think I am pretty happy with how this looks. The temple area is gonna be tricky. I think I need to figure this out next time. I know that I messed up the temple area a bit on the rain retopology, and I want to fix that mistake. But let's just have a look at this again. Like, I'm actually gonna switch to a matte cap so I can see the surface curvature even more. So if I switch between the face and the retopology, just like this, hide and unhide. I think the lip crease could be sharper. It's losing a bit of volume right now. Same thing for the chin, and same thing over here. But other than that, it should actually be good. It's capturing most of the details. But yes, the lip, that is actually a thing. So I'm going to slide these up more towards this critical point over there where I want that crease. Same thing over here. The closer they hug this edge over here, the sharper the crease is gonna be. And over here, I'm actually going to add another loop. So this one can be, I can slide this further upwards, and this one can rest a bit more snug on this crease over here. Like that. And now I have this crease over here much better captured, as well as on the lips. There's a general loss of volume, but that can be fixed another way afterwards, once I'm happy with the general retopology. When will be the next stream? I'm gonna do this weekly. Each Thursday at 4 o'clock. I kind of settled on that time in general now. But yes. If you're hungry for more, there's also the time lapses of the sculpting progress on the Blender Cloud. But more on the retopology can also be found there. Like retopology of the character Rain. But for Snow, you would have to wait for a bit. I'm going to show the basically everything else that's left to do for creating this character live. Just making it as accessible as possible. I'm going to quickly, for a short time, hide the seams and sharps just to have a look at the retopology. And I think this is actually looking pretty good. I think it could be tweaked in a couple areas. Not too happy with how some of these loops actually, like where they lead. But none of it is nonsensical. It's all, yeah, it's all kind of nice and symmetrical. And even though some areas like over here are a bit dense, it's not like they're any more dense than any other area of the face, so it should be fine. And I have just enough loops for every major crease that I want to have available for animation. Yes. Yeah, that should basically be it for now. I'm gonna end the stream here. So I hope you really enjoyed this. I'm just quickly checking for any more questions. Another shrink wrap duplicate apply might be smart before quitting. Aha! That's a good tip. Okay, I'm gonna actually do it. Shift D, Control A, bam. So now we can actually see how this compares. I think this is pretty good progress. Okay, then I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for joining, and have a good day.